Yeah, we've answered all the questions, so just checking.
So we get to talk about whatever today.
Yay!
Yay! And the camera probably just shook while I coughed.
Good morning!
Good morning! Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzy edition without any questions, so yay, rambling!
I forgot to take a picture of my cardigan again. Oh, not cardigan, my pullover this morning. So, I'm going to sit down and then hop up again. But, hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in sunny, already pretty warm, going to get warmer, maybe not as warm as yesterday or as warm.
About the same, but the wind's gonna,
windy. Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
So it is 57 degrees outside right now. And that is Fahrenheit for anyone who watches us from other places. It's going to get, into the high 70s?
High 70s, touching 80, something.
Yeah, I've got like 79-ish, but windy. So we find in Brevard, and especially on our little plaza here, well, the first thing I'm going to say doesn't apply to the plaza specifically. It rains a lot. And we've had a dry spell for a little while, which we're very grateful for. But our setup outside, we have moved to using our tent again a lot more as dynamics have shifted on the plaza outside. And if we put up the tent is determined by rain and wind. And the wind, we have weights. But weights only do you so much. We had an incident, not us, but the county had an incident with bouncy houses that went skyrocketing because of wind. So weights don't always help if it gets too windy. And the little plaza outside tends to, funnel wind or ramp it up. Man-made wind tunnel, we like to call it. The odd thing is when the super windy weather hit Brevard a few weeks ago, I want to say, we had our anemometer outside. I want to say we weren't registering winds as strong as they were countywide because they had to whip around the corner. So that's one time the man-made wind tunnel counteracted with the winds. Not that I know
we
weather,
were
but.
still clocking 20+ mile an hour wind gusts on the patio.
I know there were stronger ones throughout the county, but
depending on mountains and
So, I think we are going to put the tent up today, and we'll see. Yesterday, towards the end of the day, it started to get really windy. Bernie was here, and we took the weights off the tent. And I was going to take the last weight inside, and the wind picked up. And I'm like, I'm going to stay here and hold the tent while Bernie puts the weights away, just in case. So there's that when it comes to weather. We always have to, factor in winds, too. So, but it should be a nice day today. Our tent shouldn't be getting wet. I think there's a 1%.
Yeah, tomorrow the percentage goes up a little bit, and then, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow the percentage goes up a lot. It's supposed to rain tomorrow or Saturday.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Brevard rains a lot.
It's a rainforest.
It's a temperate rainforest, right? And so when it doesn't rain, we consider ourselves very fortunate. I'm waiting.
There's one more. I can feel it.
Bless you. When that one comes, extra bless you. Okay. So, one of the things I wanted to show off. So we have some random things we could potentially talk about today. Not a full-blown progress on knitting because I don't know how much has happened since Tuesday. It's only a couple days ago. But this is my fully dried now. I left it at the shop, just kind of hopefully not bunched up. I tried to take a picture of it on Tuesday right after we filmed, and there were creases here still. And if y'all remember, it still felt really damp. I think it took a little bit longer for it to fully dry. My watch is telling me to breathe. So this is it fully dry. I do feel like it changed shape a little from Tuesday. So this is the Avena by Jennifer Steingass. What were you going to say?
I was going to say probably because it kind of got picked up and moved around a couple of times. And
I don't think that's why, but go ahead.
If it's a little damp, everything's going to kind of shift a little bit.
Yeah, I that's not what necessarily what I'm referring to, but that's possible too. I tried to leave it stretched out, but then it was folded up, but then the creases are gone from when it was damp that I can see. I had creases running down here. The length of the sleeves is shorter than when I tried it on Tuesday. So it still rebounded a little bit. Like, if you really want to change the size of something when you're blocking it, especially to make it bigger, you really can't block something smaller than it was when you knit it. That's felting and shrinking. That's different. But especially with superwash, which we were saying can grow, also it can grow when it's wet. So if it's damp and you hang it up, the weight of it is going to pull. If you really want something to get super, super longer and stay that way, again, it's not guaranteed. You really have to pin it in place. And I didn't do that with this. I brought it in because I wanted to show it off. Yay! And I made sure when I laid it out, I didn't pull it, but I also didn't pin it to keep a longer shape. I think I still got a little more length out of the torso with the relaxing of the stitches, the evening out of the stitches. I'm pretty happy with the length of the sleeves right now.
They didn't pull it up too much, but they did pull up a little bit.
Yeah, they are. I feel like when it was wet, it was hanging down here a little bit more. And, like, some superwash has a bounce to it when it dries. Some superwash, if you lay it out and pull it, if you put it out to dry and you really try to smooth it out and push and, like, don't pay attention to what the measurements are, it might decide to stay that way. It might bounce back a little, but it might decide to stay that way. And that, I think, explains some of the complaints about like a hat or a sweater in superwash that suddenly grows enormously. But I'm pretty happy with the drape of this now. Like, the stitches up here have settled. It feels better. It feels a little bouncier than when it was damp, which is good. It's not going to feel as bouncy as when I knit it. But, and it has fuzzies. But I really am liking the way it looks. And I don't have as much puckering with the band at the bottom as I did before I blocked it. I said that on Tuesday, but I'm still experiencing that. It's still going to fold like when I sit, and that may or may not straighten out afterwards. But sometimes the relaxing of the bounciness actually helps with that. I will say that where sleeve separation is, I can see that again a little bit more, but not as bad as before I blocked it. Like when I go like this, we've got a little pucker here. Some of that's just the fold of the fabric. It also is right where my t-shirt is underneath, which is going to give it an appearance of a little foop right there. But like if I leave it hanging down like this, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I was showing someone that if you look closely, you can tell that these are two separate like balls of yarn that were doing the tonality differently. But I'm okay with that. And now I have an example of to show people of how the torso I alternated skeins and the sleeves I didn't. And if you see the difference, you can choose to do things. You can make choices about how you want to knit. That kind of thing. So. And
every color of Fyberspates or tonal yarn, Malabrigo, all the different ones that are out there. Mm-hmm. This one is a really rather muted tonal. Like
this of the DK or of the Fyberspates we have, this is a more muted tonal yarn. Absolutely. Yeah. Like let's see.
Well, just looking without my glasses at the denim, you can tell there is.
Yeah,
and that one's almost.
This is peacock. This one's got like wah. Like this has more definite highs and lows and darks and lights and different colors in it. We have quite a few that do that. A little bit like more I'm trying to find the right word. Brain is having issues this morning. When is that? When is it not though, right? But
it's a thing.
It's a thing. My Sorrel is the other one that I've done in the same yarn, different colorway with a lot more variety in the color. There are parts where I alternated and parts that I didn't, and I'm actually not sure if I alternated with the fancy colors at the top. I'll go grab that.
I don't think you did, just because of all the.
I did because there was just a lot going on. Yeah. So it's this colorway, which we might have just gotten a bag back in. We have limited options. We haven't used the Fyberspates for any of our pressed flowers kits because we have a little bit better stock than we did like a week or two ago or a month ago, but we don't want to deplete it completely for the kits. So we're happy to work with you on a kit for the DK patterns. It might push things a little bit big for the sport weight patterns for pressed flowers, but let me grab this sweater. So this is the other DK weight sweater that I made with this yarn. Again, this is the Fyberspates Vivacious DK. And it is, you can see where my cat just keeps pulling at the same strand. The Sorrel, so the Sorrel was written for fingering weight and a mohair held together, and you could change colors as you go to do a fade. And I said, I just want to do it in a DK, because fingering weight and a mohair are supposed to be the equivalent of a DK, with all the fluff, right? So I just decided, like, to do with this colorway, DK weight, not the fingering weight, just make the sweater, not have to hold two yarns together. And it, not intentionally, I just like this color, but it's become my, like, Christmas time looking like fur boughs, you know, sweater. I wore it on St. Patty's Day. The stitch pattern up here, like, you can see all the different colors in here. I want to say, with ribbing and with the fancy stuff, I don't think I alternated skeins. And then once I got down to the bottom here, the difference in stitch patterns on these, and from far away you may not be able to tell. The torso of this one is stockinette, which means all the V's are on one side. So knitting in a circle is knit. When you do stockinette flat, you knit across and then purl across to give all the V's on one side. This is what's called reverse stockinette. Not that these are like crazy dip stitches. They were really fun, but different texture with the fur bow looking things up here. The rest of it is what we would call reverse stockinette, in that it's the back side of the stockinette is what shows. So if I turn this around, if I flip this inside out, you see what all the V's would look like. And there's a lot of color variation in there. And so I did alternate skeins. It might have been fine if I hadn't, because you would still have all the color variation. It's just if one of these skeins had a lot more of a yellowy green in it than another, you might have a chunk with a lot more.
There might be some pooling.
Right? And I think I even alternated skeins on the sleeves, and you can see that, like, it's not as visible on this side because it's the back side on the outside, but you get a little ridge. I want to say if I turn this inside out, we might be able to see it. You get a little ridge running. There's a way to hide when you're alternating skeins so you don't have like a seam. Or like I can show you on a fingering weight version of this yarn. That's what I can show you all next. There's a way to change them so it kind of hides, but there's still a tightness to the side seam. Like on this one, there's a little bit of an edge right here from where I alternated skeins, but you don't have that on the underside of my sleeves because I didn't alternate skeins on these sleeves. So,
I looking at your sweater, I don't think you changed color because your patches. I mean, yes,
it kind of looks darker up here, doesn't it?
It's darker up there,
and then it's more, which is both like varying the skeins kind of balances out the color. I can see it a little more, like I see a dark patch in here. Yeah. Some of the dark patches are going to happen even if you alternate skeins, depending on like the circumference of what you're knitting, like where things stack on top of each other. I have a sweater at home I'm knitting with a Yarn Baby special colorway that we don't sell in the shop, so I haven't showed it to y'all, where there's random pooling that's happening because especially as stitch counts change, you can't predict how, like, especially variegated yarn. Tonal yarn, a little more subtle. Variegated yarn, you really can't predict how they're going to stack. So, because especially if stitch count changes, if you're making a scarf or gloves versus a sweater. So when people come in and say, well, how does that knit up? Even if we had a sample of it knit up, it wouldn't necessarily tell someone how their project is going to come out. Like, I'm thinking about the color change, the Perth with the papillon, even just straight knitting. The papillon has these short rows, which combine the bubbles, like the colors pop in different ways when it's shorter and when it's longer. And if you were going to straighten it with that, it wouldn't look the same. And if you were going, and that has another color thrown in as contrast as part of the pattern.
Yeah,
and if you're going to crochet with it, like, we have the Alice Springs, like, everything changes how it looks. So it's hard for us to have something in the shop that is going to be like, you can totally replicate this at home. And then on top of it, all of our color changing, like the Feederbrook, up in here, like another skein of this colorway
is going to look completely different.
It's going to look completely different if you grab a skein of the same yarn, even if you do the same exact thing that I did. The part of the skein that you use here might have the plies combined in a different way. So I'm thinking, yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes, like with pooling,
bouncing around a lot.
Sometimes people are like, I'll change my stitch count by 1 or 2 stitches, and that will completely change how it's pooling. So like,
and sometimes that's on purpose.
Yeah.
And we had a yarn rep come in they have an app for some of their thread or just crocheted cottons based on your stitch count, which also would base on your gauge.
Yeah.
You can make it look like it's a plaid. It's harder to do more than just a plaid, and that usually is with crochet rather than knitting. With any yarn to have like a pattern pop out. So like same thing with the papillon is it looks so cool, but that is the pattern, and using 2 different yarns rather than one yarn could create that. So I'm bouncing a little bit here, but
yeah, and for anything, like if you do a hat, it might look like a baby sweater the same size, but
we're totally bouncing around here.
And socks will mimic, like this is our example of.
It's a self-patterning yarn called Fair Isle in worsted weight, and like it combines differently here than here. And like this looks like a glove, kind of.
Glove,
and this
or
is maybe like a hat.
Sock. Yeah.
Right? So if someone was wondering, so this one actually helps us quite a bit, but say their stitch count was different, or if they're doing a
medium child
sweater. I
sweater.
Almost said a human-sized sweater.
Yeah.
An adult-sized sweater or a medium child-sized sweater. The patterning's going to look different. And that's, and hopefully it wouldn't be you told us it would and it did this. It's going to be different depending on what you do with it. But I'm bouncing around because I want to show y'all the that alternating skein seam thing. But while we're on this topic, because we're just bouncing around, bear with me, Mom. I'm squirreling.
Not a thing.
I'm super excited that my Pressed Flowers cardigan is hitting the fiery colors, right? And this is an example of, I have to go way back to dig up pictures of my Rosa Canina. I tried to do a shawl with just the fiery colors in this. It's Flashpoint from Feederbrook. I don't even know if we have any Flashpoint left. Is that the one Flashpoint? That's specific heat. So that might be Flashpoint right there. Like, the new batch has all this teal in it, and we only have one left. It doesn't look like this. And the old batches, like, some of these pale colors in here, the next time she dyed them came out super teal. So no one's going to be able to replicate my sweater. It's going to be mine. But, what I love about this is I was making this shawl with cables, and it was beautiful. I really would love to remake the shawl, although it's asymmetrical, and I struggle with asymmetrical shawls. I think it would be a beautiful shawl to make in a solid.
Clarification. She doesn't struggle making asymmetrical shawls. She struggles wearing asymmetrical shawls.
Asymmetrical shawls, with how I like to wear them as a scarf, it's hard for me to promote them as something to make because it's hard for me to tell people how to wear them. But they are really cool if you start small, get big, be done. This looks nothing like the shawl did with the colors. Like if I have the energy and remember and can put a picture at the end, I can show you what the shawl looked like versus this. Like throwing a color changing in with a solid contrast like this just completely changes the look of it. And I love that. But yeah, and
every
this guy
contrast
here,
will change how that looks.
Yeah. It's color theory, which I don't have all of the scientific or learning background on. Like what you put around it. Have you ever seen those things on social media where it's like the square in the center is one color, but when you put a color around it here and here, it looks like it's two different rectangles. It's all based on what is around it. So it's both fun and frustrating.
like my Papillons, the dark and the light.
Yep. She's got one that she has a black contrast and a white contrast with the same colors, not in the same order.
Yeah.
But the same colors where she switched every row, every stripe kind of basically, and they look complete. You would never have guessed they are the same colors, series of contrast colors in it. So, since we're on the topic of like tonal yarns and what you can do with them, or like if you want to alternate, this other sweater, at this point,
we have so many sweaters to put back.
We have so many to put back up, but we will. So this one, as I do my lap of the shop again, let me just move this out of the way. Apparently I'm going to be standing for most of today's show. This sweater, I'm going to actually take off the little stand because it is Feederbrook again, Fyberspates. I have this thing where my brain takes the first letter of oftentimes people's names too and just puts something else in afterwards. So this sweater is the Fyberspates Vivacious. It's the 4-ply instead of the DK.
Fingering.
So, yeah, it's fingering weight for the U.S. terminology rather than the DK, which is thicker, which is about twice as thick. And I did alternate skeins on this. And what I think is kind of fascinating to show y'all is at first I was alternating skeins when I got to the end of the row by just twisting the yarns around each other on the back. On the what we would call the purl side. And you can see that as this, it almost looks like a little scar running down. And it was just, I was knitting along and I moved one yarn to the back and I twisted them. Well, the yarn was already in back because I was knitting along and I got there and I twisted them around each other and I kept going. And that, you can see that here. And then I came across a video that said, okay, here, I'm going to see if I can dismiss that. It's going to go away, but I'm going to dismiss. Okay. Phone call tried to come in. Then I saw a video where someone's knitting along, yarn in the back, and they brought the yarn at the beginning of round marker, they brought the yarn to the front, and the other yarn's hanging in front, and they twist them in front. By twist, I mean the one you just finished knitting with, you leave over to the left, and you pick up the one you want to start with under from the right and bring that one to the back. So you leave the yarn you just ended with hanging in front. The yarn you're about to start knitting with, you pull to the back. But the twist, the overlap has happened on the front side of the work, which sounds counterintuitive because it nestles it between the knit stitches, and then you bring the new yarn to the back. You might have to tug it a little. My issue with this is keeping the tension, so it ends up feeling and looking a little tight there. But then you start knitting with the next yarn, and then whenever you come back to where the old yarn is hanging, you do the same thing. I started doing that here. So it goes from a scar to, it looks a little funky there, but there's no scar running down. And if you look on the other side, let me see, where, we've got here where I was switching, can't really see, you still can't really see underneath there. So this is my example of what it looks like if you're changing yarns on the back side versus bringing it to the front to switch and then going to the back and continuing. I think it's fascinating. Either way, if you're looking hard enough, you will see it. But I think this is super much more visible. And I might have, this is a much more delicate sweater, but it's still going to be fine. I might have, I alternated skeins on the sleeves as well here. You can see a little bit of a pucker here. It's like a fold that won't leave. But
it's on the inside of your arm, so,
yeah.
You know.
But if I turn this sleeve inside out, it's like you can see a divot running right there, but there's no like visible yarn scar. It's just a dimple kind of thing. It's like a fold in the fabric. So I like that very, very much. I'm just gonna, we'll put the shop back together after we're done. So my other backup plan for things to do. Did you have anything? Or are you just gonna knit? I'm like, was that something we're gonna talk about? Okay. So we mentioned on Tuesday that there's like a giant hole in the Patagonia section because we have been making kits and they've been selling, and then we've had people just come in and buy Patagonia. What has restocked is not the colorful stuff, which we still have some of, just some colors, they're gone. What has finally, excuse me, what has finally come back in that that we didn't have when we started making kits because it was all super back ordered is our neutrals. Ta-da! So, you want to take those two?
I take these two.
So Patagonia, the neutrals are back in, and we have a butt ton of like the ivory. And we have a minor butt ton of the light gray. We have like 3 bags of the ivory came in, 2 bags of the light gray came in. So the ivory is like
natural.
It's natural. It's a solid color to me. The light gray is a warm light gray. We might try to put together some kits if you wanted a shawl with a lighter background or color changing with lighter flowers. We didn't have many of those. We had a lot of brights, right? I might try to put together a couple of kits. We already have some kits for the hat and the small shawl, the small cowl with neutrals. I don't know if we'll be adding to we have a lot of hat kits still and cowls, but we don't have a ton of shawl kits right now.
We are also running out of time for other kits that we have to do. So
I might put together a few kits today. I might not be able to. So I think what Liz is trying to hint at is if you like any of this, like, contact us. We could pull together some color ideas for you. Because at this point, I'm also, like, totally depleting what we have left of Feederbrook.
I think I'm going to call this one and just say...
I really want to make some kits.
I know you want to make some kits, but I also know that
we
local yarn store day is like a week and a couple of days away.
I'm not panicking, not at all.
No, and the yarn crawl was 3 weeks from Tuesday.
I know. Okay.
So time is
if you want to make a light shawl with this, we have lovely colors, and some of them are. This is the only new one, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. If you have thoughts and you're like, "Will this look good?" You can contact us and ask, or you can just buy it. We've had some glitches with the Feederbrook inventory where I took stuff out of inventory for kits, and then the system apparently forgot that I took inventory out for kits. Technology is a nightmare. Sometimes it's awesome and does amazing things for us, and sometimes it stresses me out. So I've triple checked. So that's actually another reason maybe I shouldn't make any more kits is we've triple checked our Feederbrook inventory, and hopefully it's right. So if you see any of these and you're like, ooh, I want to make a shawl or a cardigan, go ahead and buy it. Buy it from the individual. The Patagonia, Feederbrook, Alba is the one I'm using for this. I can try to get this color up online.
If you're wondering how colors will work together, email Rebecca at sundragonartandfiber.com and say, hey, can you take a picture of this?
Yeah, call the shop, but email is great because I can respond to email as I have a chance, and I try to respond really promptly to those. But so I was like, we should have some neutral options for cardigans and shawls and stuff. Yes, that's fine. Well, let's do. I wanted to make this cardigan with the ivory and the flash point because I was like, that would be beautiful, and I didn't realize the winter Alba existed yet. And when we couldn't get this, I ordered the lighter color of Alba, and I'm actually super happy that I did that because like people have been calling it fire and ice.
I think of winter, a hint of spring. Oh, look, here comes summer! And, you know.
But I actually think the cool contrast with the fiery and pale, like, I think if I'd done the warm contrast, some of this would have been lost.
I think it would not have been as singy as it is now.
So if you don't see the winter online, because I'd like to get that up, again, contact the shop. We can send you pictures. We can tell you about things that aren't online yet. Because we're trying. and we can pull together an order. We can take your credit card over the phone if we don't have it on file, or we can send you a picture and then you can buy it yourself online, because you see how they look together. We do our best to color match like true color, but that also is affected by what you're viewing it through. So there's a lot of things that can throw it off, but you'll at least get an idea of how they look together. So sand. So I had said light gray is like a warm, heathery gray. Sand is like a heathery, little more taupey. And then on a whim, I got a color called pearl. Now on camera,
they look exactly
the same, right? The pearl, here, let me get them really, really close. This is the natural, it's called ivory, and this is the pearl. And there is just the littlest hint of a heathery, like, gray tone.
It's like ivory and gray had a baby and called it pearl.
And then called it, like, if I take that, there's little itty bitty bits of heatheriness. So if you didn't want a solid ivory, I would get the pearl, because it's got just a little bit of heathery, like, color texture to it, I like to say. But they're super close to each other. Yeah, so if you wanted to come in on, if you're local enough to come in on any day coming up, say local yarn store day too, and we could help you pull together color ideas. We should have more coming from Feederbrook. I thought it would be arriving this week, but the last batch from Feederbrook took longer than expected to come in. Usually it takes a really long time. She's trying to speed stuff up for us, but it's still taking a while for the lovely Feederbrook. That is one of our favorites. Fyberspates and Feederbrook are like our top favorites in the shop. And then to have Patagonia and Alba as nice solids to go with them is it for the Feederbrook. For the Fyberspates and Feederbrook play together really well too. I will do my best to try to list these yarns and maybe the shop links for them in the description today, since this has been our focus. And this is the pearl, is the only one that's not in the online shop yet. And I will do my best to get it there sometime today or this week. So I have hopes and dreams, and then the day happens. And so
I was like, I'm going to hang all of this up and fill the hole for Thursday. And that didn't happen.
Anyway, so if you have a question you would like for us to discuss on a Thursday, you should send it to
Liz at sundragonartandfiber.com.
Yes. If it gets sent to me, I might lose track of it. I copy her on lots of stuff that gets sent to me. But sending it to Liz, she is the keeper of the questions. So, we have virtual sit and stitch tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. You can get in with the shop phone number.
828-877-3550.
It really is just a time to relax and chat with other people who use yarn. And
we've had
people who don't use yarn, and
we've had several new people come, and it's been awesome.
The past week or two, we've had new people saying hi, and it's been really fun. And we have our regulars, and our regulars come and go too, and that's always fun. I don't want to downplay our regulars; we love them too. So this Sunday, April 23rd, is our once a month Sunday afternoon sit and stitch, I call it dual platform, because Zoom is functioning just like it does on Knit Nights. It's from 1 to 5 p.m. We also are on Facebook. Some people, either Zoom is challenging or the internet requirements for Zoom are challenging, so you can just go to our Facebook page from 1 to 5 p.m. and you'll see me and hear Zoom. But you can always pop over to Zoom. We find sometimes people come onto Zoom, we might ask them to turn their camera on to say hi at first, and then they turn it off if it's disrupting their ability to connect, that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's always
at least
fun.
Send us a message saying, hey, my camera, we've had people
we've
like
had
that.
Zoom bombers, so we want to keep that from happening.
Yeah.
But if someone can't get their camera to work, or if we can find proof of, like, hey, I'm here so we can knit and chat, or I'm here so I can crochet, I'm here so I can just hear about crocheting and knitting, then we know you're not a Zoom bomber. So it's very rare at this point. It was the height of the pandemic when people were
over
stuck
like
at home
3
and had
years,
nothing to
we've
do.
had 2 or 3.
We haven't had many.
Yeah.
But and I'm getting better at dealing with them, but since it's been a while, I would be like, if it happened again. But anyway, we have to go open the shop. We hope you have enjoyed our ambling meanderings through random stuff that came up for us in the moment. But if you'd like to focus our conversation next time, send Liz a question. Sounds good. All right. If you put a question in the comments on a video, we may or may not remember it's there. We do our best if there's a question that seems like it would be best addressed in this format to bring it to this format, but we can't always keep track of everything. So we're not Yarn. We can't make everyone happy. So all right. We will see y'all later. Bye.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the fun stuff.
We are almost at 1470. We're really, really close. That means like 30 more people will hit 1,500 subscribers, and we'll have a YouTube only sale when that happens. It won't be as big as our 1,000 level subscribers, but it will still be a discount that we would love for you to use in the online shop or by calling us or coming in. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Bye.
Bye.